Hey guys, welcome back to the Spilling Faith podcast. This is episode 4. That is
Yes.
so crazy to say.
Yep, I know. It's crazy.
Yes.
It feels like we've done 15, but we've also done like 2 at the same time.
Yeah.
There's been a lot
yeah.
of preparation that has kind of went into these, and we talk a
Yes.
lot throughout the week trying to, get these as organized as possible throughout our chaotic life. But I think it's
Yes.
going great. We had really good feedback about our last podcast, which we
Yes.
really loved it. That was our favorite.
And it was only the third one,
Yes,
but still.
I think it's going to be that everyone we do is our new favorite because I'm
Yeah.
so excited about this topic. So I really feel like this is going to be my new favorite too. So I think that's going to be like
Yes.
a common thing every week. Just this
Yeah.
is our new favorite.
Oh yeah, definitely. This week, it has definitely been one of the topics that has just kept coming up that we just need to do,
Yeah.
and this was just the week that felt best to do this. It is surrendering to God, and before we dive headfirst into this, I want to say for me personally, and I think for Grace too, but I definitely know for me, this is something that I still struggle with. It's definitely not something that I have even come close to perfecting whatsoever.
It's a daily battle for sure. It's not just
Yes.
kind of a one-time war that you fight and then it's done.
hmm
This is like an everyday thing that
Yeah.
you have
Well,
to
and
be
that's
conscious
just
of.
like it's not a one time surrender either. You got to surrender every day because
Yep.
there's new things coming up every day.
Yep.
But one thing just to kind of start us off, and then I think Grace has got a few things for us. Um, So, in our little girls' Bible study that we've been doing, we have been going over this book. It's called Thought Garden by Laura Jenkins, and y'all, you need this book. It's like directed towards girls, but I mean, it's for everybody, I guess. But this has been one of my favorites, and I'm not a reader, so like that says a lot if I'm reading this big old thing. But just one thing that she said in this book that really, really stuck out to me, and I hope she doesn't mind me stealing it for a second. But it says, when we surrender our hearts to and burdens to God, He will make us aware of things that are making our soil hard and infertile. He will reveal to us areas of sin, unforgiveness, and anxieties caused by trials and cares of the world. And if we desire to have healthy soil to plant in, we must allow God to break up the hard soil in our hearts and minds. And I just think that that kind of says it all right there, that you
Yep.
have to allow God to do all of these things.
And that's the thing to remember, like, he wants to, but it's a blessing that we have the free will, but it's also
Right.
like something that I can't imagine, you have to try to look at it as like a mother with their child type thing, and you could want the best for your children all day long, but you can only do so
Yeah.
much, like it has to be up to their free will. So I think that that's really good because he wants to help and he wants to, improve our lives, but we have to have that, I guess, obedience, really.
Yeah.
It's a want to. And then, like I said, we talked about a few podcasts ago about trials that we went through on our own, and sometimes it's just he has to let us hit that rock bottom to finally be able to
Right.
surrender it all to him. And sometimes it's necessary, and I view it as like a little bit of the tough love because that's how I was raised, was tough love, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, no.
I think that's what a lot of us need. I know that's what I needed anyways.
Yes, me too.
Yep.
Just kind of trying to prepare for this throughout the week. It goes in with a lot of praying and just not just sit down before a meal, you're ready to eat prayer, like intimately praying. And I think that's something that helps you surrender to God.
Yep.
And we have a few points on that, so I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves. But
It's really having like a conversation.
yes.
Something that my preacher brought up this morning that I've never thought about is, I've always, heard praying to God is just talking to Him, like it's just talking.
Yeah.
And it is, don't get me wrong, but you're having a conversation with Him. Like, whenever you're speaking to Him, you also have you have to have the same amount of sitting in meditation and sitting in silence and listening for
Yeah.
God, in the
Yeah.
quiet. And it's going to be in the meditating of His Word and in the quiet time in prayer. And it can't just be asking, 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 and then, never wanting
Yeah.
to sit down and listen
And I
to
mean,
His
that's
response.
how a real conversation works,
Yep.
In the real world, you gotta listen. And it even says in the Bible to listen, and
Yep.
that's like the most important thing. Um, but we try to prepare for these, and that comes with a lot of prayer and trying to find the best words to say, and hopefully God is giving us
And
the
with
words to
that being
say.
said, we kind of have like a general outline of what we try to stay in, but then sometimes God just lays it on our heart, and it's just
Right.
like we bust a U-turn in the middle of
Yep.
the podcast. Like I can't tell you how many times that we'll have this, and then we have went completely to
In
Egypt
left
and back.
field.
Yes, but it's okay. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think it's all it's all gonna work out, and as long as we're talking about the Bible and growing
Yeah.
closer with God, then we're getting that. But
Right.
something talking about the surrendering to God, I love listening to Life Church. I watch them on YouTube, a lot of their sermons, and it's just really good. And I love the way that they kind of talk about like their personal struggles, and like I said, it just makes it a lot more relatable. So I love, listening to them along with other podcasts that we've
Yeah.
mentioned before. But something that he was talking about during his sermon that I was watching is what is the most disobeyed verse in the Bible? And I'm thinking, it's honoring your mother and father,
Right.
or, something about that, or, like a lot of this world struggling with lust, or,
Right.
jealousy, envy. But really, it's most commonly Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. And it kind of just like I had to stop the video for a little bit because I'm like, that's really true in my life, is
Yeah.
trusting the Lord with all of your heart, not just trusting God, trusting him with everything, all of your being, and
Yeah.
trust in his will. And that is hard to do because it's way easier to worry than to
Oh
trust
yeah.
with all your heart, and I think, I think of the story of Hannah and Peninnah, something that he brought up, Hannah not being able to have children. And in
Yeah.
this time, if you couldn't have a child, it was almost like God has cursed you. Like you have done
Right.
something, and this is God's punishment for you doing whatever wrong thing you have done, and you're basically being shamed for,
Yeah.
since you couldn't have children, something that you've done. And Hannah's prayer for a son, and Hannah had to predetermine that she's just fully going to trust God's plan. Even when she doesn't understand, she's fully going to trust God's plan. And I think that that's really, something that I needed to know because right now, which I'm sure everybody out there listening is going through something. We all have our personal
Right.
struggles. But right now I'm in a time in my life that there are some things going on that I don't know what the outcome's going to be, and I don't know the future of it. And it's just been a lot of prayer and just a lot of asking God to help me surrender it and to fully help me surrender it, not just to be like, because it's easy to say, I surrender it, God, and then I find myself constantly worrying about it and just being like, well, what's going to happen with this? How is this going to go? How is this going to play out? And it's just important that you really have to fully surrender. And, it's important to remember that me worrying and me constantly, dwelling on it, it's not going to change the outcome of
Right.
anything.
And I just think, y'all, I keep reaching for my phone. Probably y'all see me like turning, and I'm reaching for my phone and I'm filming on it because I remembered this message that I got from somebody, because I was messaging them about, I don't even know, college or something. And that, y'all, that is like the biggest thing in my life right now is I know what I want to do, but I don't know where I want to go to college. And it's just crazy stressful, and I'm stressing out about it. And this person, it was literally just, I surrendered it all to God. And it was like I was a new person because I know that, they had struggled with anxiety really, really bad, and depression even in sometimes. But like, it was like they were a complete new person, and other people seen that too. But anyways, that was just what popped into my brain at that second. But I think with Hannah's faith in this story, or with Hannah's surrendering, came faith. And I know this story that I'm fixing to kind of hit some points on isn't necessarily like you would think, oh, she surrendered everything. But y'all, this is like my favorite story in the whole Bible. And it just really, like, a lot of different points, and I feel like it goes with a lot of different things. But it's about Jesus healing the woman that bled for like 12 years. And she just said, like, over and over, if I could just touch his robe, I would be healed. And in verse 34, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, your suffering is over. And, like, I just read that and I was like, God sees you, and, like, no one is too unclean for God. Like, he just sees a soul, he sees a person, he doesn't see your sin. He's a very forgetful God in a good way.
Right.
And I just think that, like, her faith just made her surrender that all to him, and she just put that all on God, and she was just like, he's got to take care of this because I cannot do anything. There's
Absolutely.
no more that I can do with this. And it does take, I feel like, a lot of faith to surrender that, because
Oh,
you have to
absolutely.
know that, like, God's got it and you have that faith in
Yep.
him.
I mean, you're not going to surrender to something that you don't have faith in, that you don't trust in, and that, like I said, I still struggle with it. By no means
Oh,
am I
yeah.
saying that I've got this surrender thing whipped, because it has to be a conscious decision that you make every single day. At least for me, it's like
Yeah.
we talked about earlier. It's not just, a
One and
war.
done.
Yeah, that oh, I've done this, and then I don't have this problem for the rest of my life. It's constantly that when the devil starts, lurking in with those thoughts of worry and the thoughts of anxiety, and like, oh well, your banking account's got below this number, or oh, things are looking unpromising for this, or it's just important to have that faith and just know that God's got this, and His plan is way better than mine, and He works all things out for good.
Yeah. And another thing, like, with those anxious thoughts or whatever, like, I guess, bad thoughts that you have about yourself or whoever, whatever, and you're like, you want to surrender everything to God, but I don't know, this might be for me, and just for me, I don't know, maybe other people have dealt with this, but I know for me a big one, and still to this day, is, oh, well, you've done this, or why, well, this is all your fault, so why would you put that on God? Why would you put that on somebody else to fix or to give you peace about this, when all of this is something that you've done? And I just go back to that nobody is too unclean for God. Like, God, he's got it.
Well, and I think that's important to remember too, that
Yeah.
like sometimes God has to do something in me, and the choices that I make, God has to let those decisions do something in me and change occur before He can do something for me, and through
Yeah.
me. And that's really important, just like we spoke about a few podcasts ago when we were sharing our testimonies. In times, going through different things, in childhood, and I just couldn't understand why am I going through this. And now I get older, and I am working with some of the youth at our church, and just hearing, stories, or like coming into contact with people at my job that have went through situations that I did, and I'm finally able to share my testimony and be like, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not all bad. And I know right now it looks like it's all bad, but there is so much good that comes from it, and there is so much growth that can come from the
Right.
trauma and from the heartache. And I know right now it just seems like it's an unfair punishment, but to me, I know that the struggles that I've went through, like, it makes me so much more thankful and grateful. And I can't remember where I read this at, but it was just like basically the best way to combat anxiety in your life. And I think there's a verse about it. I can try to find it, but the best way to combat anxiety in your life is thankfulness,
Yeah.
and just to constantly remind myself. And it's hard to be, and it makes sense, you can't really be anxiety ridden about something and stressed about something when you're constantly thankful and grateful, and praising God, and just telling people, like, look how God has blessed me. And you can't really dwell in anxiety whenever you're constantly living in a season of gratefulness.
Yeah. And something else that, like, is just really great about, and this kind of sounds like it's contradicting itself, but about all of these trials that we go to, it makes our endurance so much greater and so much stronger, and it's God using us to help somebody else.
Yep.
And I really love that. Like, that, I just try to always remember that no matter what I'm going through, that I'm gonna get through it with God, and that He is fighting my battles, and he is way greater than I am. I would probably lose a fight to a bunny rabbit. So that's all I'm saying.
Yes, I definitely think that that is true.
Yes.
Um, for sure. So, on the topic of surrendering, um, I was really trying to research, why is it so hard to surrender? Because it's not something that's easy to do by any
Mhm.
means. Like, I really, I'm going to say have and continue to struggle with
Yeah.
it because I have in the past, I do right now, and I'm sure I will in the future. Has it been a lot easier? Absolutely, because, like I said, growing in faith and really meditating in His Word, it helps build your faith so
Yes.
much, and just seeing and reflecting things in your life that He has done, and actually being able to, discern what is good and what is evil, and
Mhm.
the way that He has blessed, and the way that He's worked, and the people that He's put in my life.
Right.
That that really helps. But basically, the reason why it's so hard to surrender is our brains and our bodies are wired for survival. And with that being said, in our environment, we have to have some level of predictability and security. And whenever you're surrendering something to God, you're basically forfeiting that all.
Yeah, you were so vulnerable in that moment.
Yes, like I'm sitting here and I'm forfeiting, God, it is your will, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. And to be able to say that and to be fully okay with that, the amount of peace that it fills you with,
Yes.
like I have really, probably in the past month, worked on surrendering to God more than I
Mhm.
ever have in my life. And I just really prayed to God. I'm like, just help me with it because I don't feel like I've ever truly been able to surrender in my life before.
Yeah.
But in this past month, I'm telling you, I've just finally helped me surrender in my marriage, help me surrender in what's going on, in this aspect of my life. And the amount of peace that He has given me,
Mhm.
just knowing that it's in His plan, and then like I talked about earlier, there's more than one way to get to the end goal that God wants you at.
Mhm.
And when we stray here and we stray there, it's not that you've ran into a dead end, it's that you've took just a detour. You're
Right.
taking a different way to get there. And even when you've hit rock bottom and you feel like, "Ah, I've got to start over," you're not really starting over because you're at an advantage because you're able to start over with that experience
Yeah.
of what you've already went through. So you're at that advantage point. It's just having to look at it that mindset and not let yourself get beat up because at the end of the day, we are humans. We are
Mhm.
imperfect. But yeah, like I said, just remembering that, having that grace for yourself, and just remember that, you know, God has carried you this far. He's not going to leave you and abandon you. And
Yeah.
it's going to be His grace that continues to carry you on through whatever you're going on in life. Like, it's not going to be that I've got myself into this situation and God's not going to be able to help me. Like, God's embarrassed of me and He's not going to come help me
Yeah.
out of this situation because I've got myself into this
Mhm.
sticky mess. He's going to come regardless of what we got ourselves into whenever we
Yeah.
cry out to Him, and then, like I said, just have that full surrender moment.
Yeah. And I I'm a yapper, so I like to pray to God a lot. Me and God are tight. And it's not just a thank you for whatever. It is. I thank God all the time, but it's y'all. It is like ugly crying on your knees, pleading to God, like those intimate
And sometimes
prayers.
it's just crying and like not having
Yeah,
words to say.
there have been so many times that I'm like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what to say or what to do right now. Like, I just need
And
your
sometimes you don't even
guidance.
know why you're crying.
Yep.
It's just,
And
I need you to
it's,
work it
yeah,
out. And
there's
I always
some
feel
kind of
better after it.
comfort.
Yes,
Some kind of
it
comfort.
really is. Especially whenever it's a moment that you're just so overwhelmed and so stressed that you're like, I can't talk to anybody about it because I don't even know what I want to talk about because there's just so much, and I don't feel like it's really one aspect. But yeah, it's just therapeutic to be able to talk to Him like that and just to have those
Yeah.
cross sessions and, like I said, just have a relationship with Him. For a long time, I looked to God like He was a disciplinary authoritative figure.
Yep.
Like He
No, I
knows
completely get what you're
everything
saying.
that I have done wrong, and I like by no means are we worthy, but I feel so unworthy to even speak to Him. I don't want to talk
Yeah.
to Him about this. I'm ashamed of this. And when I finally realized, that He forgives us and that He loves us, and will is, from him, and spreading the gospel and just being the best Christians and truly being a disciple of Jesus. Um, Whenever I finally realized that, it was so easy to have a conversation. And now I talk to him like he's a best friend and just truly, having conversations. And I find myself throughout the day just, you know, talking to him about everything that's going on. And, once I start on a roller coaster of talking to him, it's just like I continue talking about things and praying about things. And it's things that I believe it's just the Holy Spirit bringing out that I didn't even really know was an issue for me. And I'm just like, I've never really thought about that, or I didn't really know that that was something on my heart. But once you get in that vulnerable state and
Right.
get in that deep prayer and that deep meditation, all of these things start, festering up, and it's amazing to see what
Yeah.
comes out of it. Whenever you're truly intentionally praying, and like she said, not
Uh-huh.
just a prayer before the meal and God is good, God is great,
Yeah.
a meal or a prayer like that before a meal. Which there's nothing wrong with that, teaching your
Oh, right.
children those, the Lord's Prayer and different things like that. But I think it is important to have the personal prayers and to have the specific prayers for certain things.
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing to talk about is I was trying to think of ways to surrender to God to help you guys that you can, do in your everyday life to help you, like that. Us too. I know
Yeah, this
I'll
is
for
stuff that we
sure
do.
I've screenshotted this. So it'll be for sure stuff that goes in my personal journal to start doing every day. Of course, the first one, prayer. Um, and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but having specific things that you pray for. God, I have this relationship that I need help with. I have this job that I need help with. I have this career choice that I need help with. I have, this person that's dealing with a sickness, and having them listed out in a specific and pray for them specifically and take that time to meditate on and not just help me surrender it all. Like, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that prayer, but I think it's more effective to have the
Yeah.
specifics wrote out and be like, I specifically need help with this,
Right.
because I think it helps you whenever you come into, like I said, Satan messing with your brain and being like, hey, don't you need to worry about this, or this person is sick, or what about your job, or different things like
Right.
that. And just being like, I've surrendered it to God, and God, I pray for you to help me fully surrender this
Yeah.
circumstance that I've got going
And
on.
I've definitely had like the prayer where it's just like I'm surrendering everything to you, and it's like, yeah, but when pray specifically about like help me just give this relationship to you, or whatever college I don't know what I'm doing with that. Help me give that to you because I know your plan is greater than anything that I could ever imagine. So definitely I know for me having those specific things that I'm praying about and praying for and just giving those things to God, I feel so much at peace.
Yeah.
And it is like there's no, and I want to say there's no worry. There have been many times where it's like there's no worry, there's no anything me just keep on like, oh, what about this, what about this, what about this. No, but sometimes there is a little worry
Yeah, and I think
still.
that's just, like I said, Satan and a little bit of
Yeah,
spiritual warfare. Well, not a little bit, a lot of bit of spiritual
you're right.
warfare. And that's what makes it that constant battle and that constant, decision. I mean, just like in your everyday life, being a Christian,
Yep.
yes, it's a dedication, and a baptism. And like once you declare that Jesus is the Savior of your life, that is awesome. But it doesn't stop
No.
there. And I feel like that's an issue that I feel like I have with, I'm not gonna say a lot, but some of the ideas that I have seen people put out there, and like people, well, I have done this one thing, so I'm good. I don't have to do anything else.
Yeah,
I
like
can live whatever life I want to, and I'm good. And that's not the case. You once you read the word, you realize the expectations that God has for us, and He is very aware that we are imperfect and that we are sinful, but we have to strive to be our best. We can't expect God to keep forgiving us and just going out and keep on doing the same things over and over
yeah.
again and just having no, remorse about it and just being like, oh, I prayed this prayer, so I'm good.
Yeah.
um, so another thing is meditation on scripture. I think that is a huge thing, because I mean, at the end of the day, how are you going to surrender all of your problems and surrender your life and, surrender with all of your heart to something or someone that you don't even know.
Yeah.
And this is how you get to know God. You can hear all the stories that you want to, but to read them, to meditate on them, I'm telling you, there's been stories, that I have heard all my life growing up, and then reading them in the Bible, it just sends chills all over me. And it's just something about reading them on paper and meditating on it and really taking that time to dissect it little by little.
Yeah.
It makes it have a whole new meaning to me, anyways.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The next thing is surround yourself with a supportive faith community. I think that is a huge one.
Yep.
A
Me
huge
too.
one for me, anyways, because I'm trying not to get into specifics, but whenever I have found myself around negative Nancy's, it can dampen your attitude a lot. And I know it had an effect on my own personal relationship with God because do you ever hang around those people that whenever you're around them, you just feel drained
You just feel
afterwards?
like miserable, and you're like, ugh.
Yes, and I think it's important, to maintain a healthy Christian relationship and to maintain, the positive attitude. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with talking about things that are going on in your life, or venting or having those crying sessions, but it's those who constantly dwell in negativity and, never look at the positive outlook on anything. And I mean, back to what I said a while ago, they just dwell in anxiety. They don't have any thankfulness, gratefulness in their hearts. That type of thing. So I think it's important to surround yourself with those supportive people, people that are like-minded, people that have the same end goals. And that's not to say that you can't reach out to people that are going through things and struggling, with their own Christian walk, but it's important to not fall into, the ways, that they are. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get this out, but not to go back to living a sinful life, things that you might have
Yeah.
struggled with
Something
before.
that kind of goes with that is I've seen this everywhere, like literally everywhere that I've seen, like that I've been on or whatever, that, Jesus hung around sinners, but he didn't become one.
Yep.
And that's just what I think about. But like, and there's, it's that somebody, that person that can also hold you accountable, because if you're talking
Yes.
to them and you have that good relationship with them, you tell them everything. I tell my best friend everything. I tell Grace everything.
Yep.
And they're those people that's like, give it to God. Just stop worrying about it. You can't do anything about it. Give it to God. And it's those people that hold you accountable. I know our grandma, y'all, it didn't like bother me, but it was just like, okay, give me another answer. But it was like, that's the most perfect answer. There's a fly. But anytime that I would call her and I would be like, and I don't know if she did this to you, she did it to me all the time, and she still does, but I would be like, oh, Jojo, like, such and such happened, whatever. And she's like, pray about it. Just pray about it. I'll be praying for you.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I need another answer. Like, what do
know,
I
it's
do?
like,
And
I need
it's
you to tell me like a hitman that I can get in
Yes.
contact with, or like this one thing that I could do.
yes.
Not that I support violence or condone violence. But it was just like, I need a specific answer. I need you to tell me how to handle this, and I need you to tell me what I
Yes.
want to hear, and to
But-
sit here and
yeah.
basically nag with me, and dwell
Right.
on this. But
no,
yeah.
she always, like I know me accountable. And also it's just like that reminder of just pray about it, Chloe. Like, and that's the best thing that you can do, because God is your best friend. Talk to him. He is the only one that is constant and that can give you that peaceful feeling and that security that you need. And as much as it didn't like get on my nerves, like that
Yeah.
sounds awful, but it was just like,
It was
okay, Jojo,
aggravating.
what do I do?
Yes.
I need you to tell me what to do.
Yep. And it's important to remember that, things that are an absolute shock to us and just like life-changing moments and life-changing news, that it's like, what am I going to do? Like, this has shattered my whole life,
Right.
whether it be something that has changed last minute in your career or a relationship, and it's just like, I don't feel like I can continue on, like I wasn't expecting this. the God we serve, He is all knowing. He already knows how all this
Yeah,
is
he's
going to
like,
play out.
"Psh, I got you. What
Like
are you
nothing
talking
is a
about?"
surprise to Him. So to me, that helps give me comfort in surrendering to Him. Is like He already knows everything that's going to happen. He already knows how this is going to play out. He's got me. And then, like I said earlier, the verse, He works all things out for good. All things,
Right.
regardless of what it is. It's all going to be in His will. And even it might get rocky and it might get difficult sometimes. I'm not saying that once you become a Christian that it's not going to be difficult, because you will have your times of difficulty. But to have Him to lean on, to
Yeah.
have Him to fall on, He is a God that is good. He is a God of love. He does want the best for us. He does want to be there. You can run to Him and lean on Him and just fully trust in Him, because He is good and everything will work out. And it's just important to trust Him during those times. I think about when the Bible in the story, when Him and the disciples are out in the boat and it's coming the big storm and the
Yeah.
waves are crashing and everything else, and they wake up Jesus and they're like in a panic because the storm's coming, and He's just basically like, do
Okay.
you not know who I am? Like, have you not seen the miracles that I've performed? And
Yeah.
like, you have little faith. You're still sitting here worrying, and I feel like that's how it is sometimes for me, because I'm waking Jesus up, and I'm like, do you
Hello.
not see what's going
What's
on in
going
my
on?
life?
Pick the
Like,
pieces up. What are we doing?
yes, I'm like, I need you to tell me what to do, and I need it done right now. Like, I can't wait.
Yes.
And it's just important, now I have gotten a lot better on it, but a year ago today would not like the me today,
Yeah.
because like you said, I would have JoJo answers, and I would be like, listen sis, you just need to calm down and pray about it, because I would have been like, don't even talk to me because I'm freaking out right now, and that's the last thing I need to hear. But it is the truth. It's something that seems so mundane and something so small, but it is something that is so life changing and so
Yes.
so important. And it really is. So on to our next thing. I know this isn't for everybody, but I am a big believer in journaling.
Oh, this is the one I've been waiting for.
Yes, and I highly encourage everyone to journal, whether you're young, you're more mature in age, you're a man, you're a woman, you're whoever. Journaling is something that has been the best form of therapy, and like I have found myself a lot of times, just whenever I'm journaling about how my day went, it almost turned into like a prayer. And I have journals from years ago. I've probably filled up about 6 journals throughout my life, and I love to go back and read my journals, because a lot of the time I found myself talking about things that were weighing heavy on my heart and the things that I was struggling with. And then I go back and I read the stories, and just seeing now how God answered them and how God handled it. And I'm just like, I was so upset about this situation, and it ended up being so small and so minute. And it like, thank God that this relationship ended, because it ended up being so much better than I ever could have imagined.
Right.
Um, so like I said, I really highly encourage
Yes.
journaling.
And like, yeah, that is one thing that I love. Y'all, I have a box. I have a bunch of boxes, but this one specific box, and I'll either put the whole journal in it, or I'll just like tear a page out at a time, just whatever I'm feeling like that day. But something that like I know that I do a lot, like if I have plans to do something or go somewhere or whatever, and like something happens or it changes last minute, or I don't know, in school, like I've got everything planned and then an assignment gets added like last minute, or the due date changed, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And it's really like not that big of a deal,
Right.
but then I'm like stressing about it in the moment, but I have to just remember like it's not that big of a deal, and that like plays so much into like my spiritual life, is that I tend to do that sometimes, and I'm really trying to be better about it, and I have gotten better about it, but it's like I guess I overreact and I'm dramatic for a minute, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And it's like I'm one of the disciples in the boat, like you said, like,
Yeah.
wake up, God, my life is falling apart. What are we doing?
Just in panic mode, and it's like just shaking. So
Yeah.
yeah, I completely get that. Another thing that helps is memorizing verses, specifically verses that you can find that are specific about what you're going through. Whether it be anxiety, finding scriptures about that. Whether it be something in your marriage, finding scriptures about that. Whether it's something with your children, finding scriptures about that, and just memorizing those and constantly being able to just quote it. And I have, I feel like, well, not just I feel like, it is very important to have those moments like when Jesus was being um, tempted by the devil,
Oh, yeah.
and just to have those, it is written moments. It is written that, God says this about this situation that I'm in, and it is written
Yeah.
that God says this about this situation. And I feel like that helps whenever you're in the process of surrendering everything and Satan is
Yeah.
creeping in with those thoughts of worry and anxiety. And it's like,
Ah.
Satan, it is written.
Yeah, this is something that me and her talked about. I don't remember when, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like this might have been over the phone. Anyways, just about like we never really seen the devil working in our lives until like we. How did you word that? I don't even remember now. It was, like
I know until I'd never seen Satan working in my life until after I had fully devoted myself to God.
yes,
And it was just not, yeah, not necessarily like before I knew God, because I knew of God always growing
but
up.
you didn't like have that
But
relationship.
I knew God whenever I was going through those situations, and I knew God when I started reading the Bible. It wasn't no longer knowing of Him or knowing about Him. I
It wasn't
knew
an
Him.
acquaintance
Yes,
anymore.
absolutely. And whenever I seen that, God started, taking, like, He was talking about the scales falling off of that man's eyes. Like, the scales fell off my eyes, and I'm like, this was Satan working in this
Yeah.
situation, and this was spiritual warfare that I went through, and this person that was in my life, like, I feel like they were put in my life, and it was just taking me further and further away from God. And these things happen because it might have been that, one thing that I will say is I've noticed whenever I'm getting the closest that I've ever been to God, I go through so much spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And in the moments of like now, me truly surrendering, not just saying I surrender this, but truly having that prayer and the actions and the meaning of I do fully surrender and I do work on it every day to surrender. I'm telling you, my whole life has changed.
Yeah.
Relationships has changed. People that I used to talk to all the time, I no longer talk to. And that's not to say everybody. Like, if anybody's listening into this podcast that I don't speak to anymore, it's not like, oh, Grace felt like I was, Satan in her life or anything like that. But I do feel like God was like, listen, at least for this time, like, you need to kind of put a healthy boundary up away from you and this person, for the time being. And like I said, just the way that everything has changed in my life, everything is continuing to change. And it, like, if anything, I'm not anxious about it. I'm excited because I see how much God has already done in my life, and I'm excited to see the things that He continues to
Right.
keep doing. And I just know, like, it fills me with so much joy because I have, for the 23 years of my life, been so much of a control freak. And it's like, I need to be in control of this.
Yeah.
I need to handle this. I want to do it my way. And I feel like God at one point was just like, if you do it your way, because you're not going to listen to me, you just do it your way. You let me know how that works out for you, and I'll be here whenever you come
And
back.
it was not pretty.
And boy, did I come back crawling on my knees in tears and was like, okay, this did not work out. I tried it my way. My way was not right. Like, I need you, God. And whenever I was finally just to that point to surrender and to put it in His hands and to let His will be done, like I said, His plan is way greater than mine could ever be, and it is all working out for the good. And I truly say that He does have the best intentions for us. And even when we have those uncomfortable situations, talking about surrounding yourself with supportive people, the iron sharpens iron. If you
Right.
think about that, that's not going to be a pretty process. Like, it's
Oh
going to
no.
be a lot of loud clinking and noises and
And shaping.
uncomfortable. Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of uncomfortableness going on, but at the end of the day, like, it's going to be for the good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next thing is trusting in God. Basically, we've been talking about this whole
Right.
time, not knowing, even when you don't understand what's going to happen, even when you don't understand the timing of the situation, just trust in Him, know that He's going to work it all out good. And then, like I was talking about, something that was very difficult, let go of control. Stop trying to control the situations. Realize that, I can't control other people's reactions, and I can't control other people's actions and what they do, but I can control my response. I can control how I handle the situation. And just, remembering that, I can either choose to walk in love, or I can choose to set healthy boundaries, because God is love, and if I'm not choosing to walk in love, then I'm not choosing to follow God.
Yeah.
It's me following Satan essentially in that point, if I'm not choosing to walk in love, because God is love. So it's important to remember that and to pray that. And even when it's hard and it's the devil tempting you, and I'm telling you, it can be very difficult to not want to walk in love. And it can be very easy to go in envy and go towards a state that is opposite of love. So it's important to walk in that love, and
Yeah.
the best outcome will come from that.
I just know I've definitely needed some of those get out, Satan, get away, those it is written moments.
Absolutely. Something else that I wrote down, at some point we have to let go of what the should be in our
Yeah.
daily lives have been, and let go of, well, I should have went this route. Like, something that a lot of you guys may not know is, from the time I was in high school, my whole plan had to be was to join the Coast Guard. I had done every preparation. I'm talking about every summer, every morning before school, after school. My dad and I would work out. We would go run our miles. We would go do whatever. We was constantly doing 5Ks and going walking and going on hikes and going doing everything. And it was so much preparation. And anyways, went to the Coast Guard. It wasn't for me. I'd realized, that basically when I got there, God just laid on my heart and was like, listen. And I had had this feeling in the back of my mind the whole time that's like, I really shouldn't be doing this, but at the same time I was struggling with, I've prepared for years to do this, so like I'm going to see it out, because I don't have a plan for college. I don't have a backup. I don't have anything planned after high school, like I have to continue with this because I spent the last 3 years of my life preparing for this. And when I got there, and God was just, He laid it on my heart so heavy, and I was literally sobbing about this every night, because it was like one time in my life that I could almost physically hear Him say, like, this is not where you're supposed to be. This is
Yeah.
not my plan for you. Like, basically telling me, like, this is your last chance to get out before you're committed for years, but like, this is not what I have in my
Yeah.
plan for you. And that was so hard, because there was almost like some point of disappointment and shame that I felt. Not necessarily, I mean, I felt like I was letting my family down. They didn't make me feel that way, but I felt like I was letting them down. I felt like I was letting my recruiter down. I felt embarrassed, because it was almost like I failed at this, but it just wasn't in God's plan. It wasn't God's will for my life. And I think it's very important that we need to let go of, like it said, the should be's, and I should be doing this, because there's no such thing as that,
Yeah.
of what it should be. It's all God's plan, and His plan will be whenever we fully surrender and fully devote and put our all into Him. Um, and then, like I said earlier, He's not surprised by anything. He knows what He has in store for you. He knows His plan, and just to fully, remember that. Um, One of the verses that I had was Matthew 6:34. Um, I love scripture, so any time that I have the
Oh
chance
yeah.
to pull up scripture,
And that's the best thing to back it, 'cause
yes.
it's real and true.
Yep. And so it's Matthew chapter 6, verses 34. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Today's trouble is enough for today. That is so true. I can't, express that enough, that there is so many things that go on in our everyday lives that we have enough stress. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about what's going to happen next week. Don't worry about where you're going to be a year from now, because today has got its own set of worries and its own set of trouble. So we're
Yeah.
looking up Psalm
I did.
55,
The next
22.
one. Yes, 55:22. Give your burdens to the Lord, and He will take care of you. He will not permit the godly to slip and fall.
Yep.
That is just, if you're really like, and you're going to have trials and everything else, but if you are really just diving in with Him, head
and
on.
being true hearted with it and
Yeah.
having the best intentions with it. He's not going to let you fail. He's not going to leave you hanging. And then
He's
like
not
I
going to
said
lead
earlier,
you down some path
yeah,
that you don't need to
and
be
I
down.
was talking to somebody in our family earlier this week, and basically they were just reminded me that talking about the footprints in the sand, that it's just like, God, where have you been through this
Yeah.
moment? And God's like, look at the
Look,
footprints in
look,
the sand.
yeah.
I've carried you this way. This is my footprints in the sand. I've carried you. I've been the one to bring you all this far. Sorry, Tilly has got her toy,
And she's hit the camera and it's
yes,
okay.
but it's fine. It's all gonna work out.
Come here.
Um, so some things that happen when we surrender that we've kind of briefed over, but just to go over real quick again is, number one, the biggest thing is it reduces anxiety.
1000%.
Yeah, so you're gonna have less stress and less anxiety. I'm not gonna say you're not gonna have the moments of stress, anxiety, but it's just gonna be that freeing, that you're not gonna be constantly dwelling in that anxiety,
Yeah.
dwelling in that stress. The next thing is it helps us regulate our emotions, which I feel is a big one. And I know my husband Blake is constantly like, "You're getting too emotional." It's like, just
1000%.
you're gonna have to calm down. You're gonna have to pray about it, and you're just gonna have to let it go. Like, you can't sit here and just dwell on something and have your
Yeah.
emotions wreak havoc on you. Because I definitely feel like I let that happen.
I let it happen all the time.
Yes.
It's bad.
Yep. So another thing is it's going to give us peace, and it's going to allow you to be more present. And that is something that, really,
Yeah.
life is so short. And like sometimes I
And
sit
it
and
goes
think,
so
yes,
quick.
I'm like, I'm already 20, like I'm 23 years old, married. Sometimes it hits me and I'm like, I'm in my house. I'm married. Like, I feel like we should still be playing Barbie dolls
Okay,
at
y'all.
our house.
After I graduate, I'm never going back to like I'll have college, but like I'm never gonna have those Friday night football games that y'all. I had a whole mental breakdown about it the other day. I was bawling my eyes out. It was rough, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just being more in the present and you know, just I don't even know the words for it. Just you don't have those anxious thoughts of like you're sitting here just daydreaming about tomorrow, and it's really not daydreaming if you're like anxiety. It's like
Dwelling on it,
yeah,
being
it's
nervous
just
about it. But
and you don't even
yeah.
know what's going on around you.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, just taking those moments and being
Oh yeah.
grateful and being
Yes.
thankful. And it's just constantly like, thank God for this life that I have, And Blake and I aren't in a season, where we have children, but whenever growing up in a household, when it was Sawyer and Addison, them being, young and it just being, I don't want to say chaos, but it was just like constantly something
lot.
was going on. Yes, and it was very noisy. And it
There's a
was easy to
gazillion of
get
y'all.
overwhelmed. Yes, because,
Yes.
there was a house full, in which I love growing up that way, but it was a house full of kids, and it was such a blessing, like on holidays, on Christmas morning, I loved, watching everybody open their gifts and hearing that. But, there was also times where it had had a long day and just hearing, like that constant chatter, and I would have to take moments and sit and be like, one day it's not going to be like this, and one day we're not all going to be together. And if my mom is watching the podcast, she's
She'll probably
probably
cry.
she's bawling her eyes out by now. But I set moments now when it's just Blake and I, and it's quiet, and there's not kids running around, and there's not monster trucks all on the floor,
Or
and
Legos.
Jackson
Oh,
playing
the
his little
Legos.
electric guitar, and Addison with her baby dolls that are screaming, and her being a single mom who works so hard with 7 baby dolls walking around the house. And there's gonna be a moment and a time, when she's in her little princess dress, when that's not a thing anymore. And then it's just constant, it's just, I had to thank myself and be thankful. I'm so thankful that I have so many brothers and sisters. I'm so thankful that they are healthy and they're able to make a mess in the house. And I'm so thankful that,
Yeah.
we have a supper that we can burn, and
That we can burn. Okay,
and that we
Grace.
can recook.
That's how our family is.
I can't tell
we
you
burn
how many
things.
pans of cornbread that we would burn, and Mom was just like, just cut the bottom off. Because there'd be so much going on that typically it would be bath time. It would be a baseball game, get home, start cooking supper. Well, let's watch the kids real quick. So she would, take Sawyer Addison, I would take the other one, wash them real quick, put them on there, and then Mom would be like, oh my word, like something's burning in there.
It's
So
smoking.
yes, it was just important for me to sit down and have those moments. And I feel like, it does help, if Blake and I ever do have children, to be able to enjoy those and be more grateful, because now I have grown up in that and I have realized how fast it goes by, and to have those moments to be able to enjoy it. And just like we have a niece and nephew, and well, we have several that aren't blood, but
Yes.
I've always considered on my nieces and nephew to have those moments that it's like it just goes by so fast, and life is so precious, and just take those moments to truly be thankful for it, and to thank how God blessed us, and we might not have the best of the best of the nicest things, but we do have two vehicles that are paid for and that do work and are dependable, and we do have a roof over our heads, and we do have a pantry full of food, and we are able to go buy groceries and not have to worry about, well, we bought groceries, so what can't we pay for, and just be thankful in those moments. And like I said earlier, just not dwell and live in that anxiety, and just really, whenever you start surrendering that to God, you can just finally live in peace and enjoy life. I don't feel like
Yeah.
it's truly possible to enjoy life when there is no surrendering.
Oh, yeah.
But once you surrender, it, like I said, it's life changing. And I feel like this is going to be like one of the most important topics, because it is something that you will continue throughout your whole, you know, throughout the rest of your life. You're going to continue to struggle with this surrendering. Through different seasons of your life, it's going to be different things that you're working on surrendering. But I really loved this topic, and I'm glad that we got to talk about it, and I hope you guys
Yes.
benefited from it as much as we did, because we have been talking for 52 minutes.
No way. Oh my.
That is crazy.
It feels like it just flies by, and some of the stuff
It
I don't even
does.
remember saying.
Yes.
So crazy.
And I love it, and continue with the support and with the great messages.
Yes.
We love getting it. It's very encouraging.
I think
to
I
have
called Grace
those.
like Wednesday night, like
Yeah.
sobbing. I was
Yes.
bawling my eyes out, and
Well,
I
we
was
had
like,
both got messages those
yes.
days. And see, something that was crazy, that we didn't discuss this beforehand, so I hope she's okay with me talking about it. But
I
it was
guess.
just something that I was really praying on, and I feel like I know it was Satan really working on me, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
God, this podcast, if it's something that's in your will, if it's something that is even making an impact on others, like, please let it be known. Well, I received 2 messages that day, and then she received a really heartfelt message, that
Yeah.
was kind of pouring out their testimony and just really opening up about how it has affected, and to really have, that reassurance that what we're doing is, impacting the kingdom in a good way, because that's the thing. Like, we always want to make sure that we're impacting the kingdom in the best possible way we
Yes.
can. It's really, encouraging, and I love hearing people's feedback on the podcast, and different topics to talk about and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yep. So, anyways, do you have anything else to add?
I do not. I do not.
So I hope you
But
guys have a great week. Oh, one thing that I did want to leave you with, even though we've already talked for almost an hour,
just kidding.
what's a few more minutes? I seen this post on Facebook, and so let me see. Okay, so this is what the post reads. At the end of every Sunday morning service, our pastor looks out across the people sitting underneath our country church steeple and gives us our marching orders. Go give 'em heaven this week. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's obviously a clever twist on the phrase about giving 'em HE double hockey sticks, but it's more than a cute turn of a phrase. It's a reminder that each week gives us a fresh chance to bring thy kingdom come right here on earth just as it is in heaven. This week, let's be human mirrors of heaven, reflections of the one who created us to bring light to every person who crosses our path. Let's share joy, give generously, encourage others, exhibit gratitude, spread kindness, spark peace, shine bright. May we let the world know what, or rather who, we are made of. So therefore, go give 'em heaven. So with that being said, I hope you have a great week, and go give 'em heaven.
Go give them heaven, guys.
Yeah, that might be a normal thing that I use in my everyday life, because I love that.
That might be the ending to our podcast
Yeah.
every time.
Go give 'em heaven.
Go give them heaven.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.